Perfect.
Sorry about that. Took me a little while.
I'm going to get our live stream ready.
Okay.
Hello, Rita should be joining in just a sec.
Hello, this is Aaron with Iowa Farmers Union. How are you?
Good.
So folks with us in the audience, just a reminder that we will not monitor this chat box for questions. So if you have any questions for Candidate Hart, please put them in the Q&A box so we can, be certain that we get them. Also, I would love it if folks could just drop where they're joining us from in the chat box. It's always so neat to see where you guys are, because oftentimes you're all over the country. Texas, Des Moines, Ankeny. Awesome. Okay, Aaron, so we are live on Facebook. So whenever Candidate Hart joins us, we can get started.
Excellent.
Ooh, I see some folks from Salt Lake City.
Yes.
From Des Moines. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
I see some familiar names in our attendee list. So we're so happy to have all of you guys here. This is so exciting.
Yes, isn't that wonderful?
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for joining us.
Oh gosh, my great pleasure. It's a hot one out there today, so I'm happy to be inside doing it.
Yeah. It's nice to get a break inside, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, great. Thank you for joining us. I'll just give a little introduction and then we'll get started if that's okay.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, again, everyone, thank you for joining us. My name is Aaron Lehman. I'm president of the Iowa Farmers Union. I farm here in central Iowa. And we are so glad that you could be joining us today for our Lunch and Learn series. And we have a couple of announcements regarding the series before we begin into today's. But just to start off, we wanted to say thank you so much to Rita Hart for joining us today. And we're looking forward to a good interaction and a fun conversation.
Great.
We want to remind people that the Iowa Farmers Union is playing its part to help out farmers in distress and in need. We are working with other partners in Iowa to administer the Farm Aid COVID relief grant program. If you are a farmer in need or know of a farmer in need, the Farmers Union and our partner organizations are administering a small grant program, $500 of assistance to farmers and farm families in need for household expenses. And that program is still open. So please go to iowafarmersunion.org and sign up for that, or tell your neighbors about it. We want to provide whatever help we can. Just as a reminder, on our next webinar will be July 9th, and that will be Matt Russell, Executive Director of Iowa Interfaith Power and Light, and we'll have a good discussion about climate and farming during that time. And then on the 16th of July, followed by another appearance on the 23rd, Pulitzer Prize winning author and columnist Art Cullen of the Storm Lake Times will be joining us. But today we are so happy to be joined by Rita Hart. Rita is a longtime farmer and educator in Eastern Iowa. She has served in the Iowa State Senate, and she also joined the Democratic ticket as a candidate for Lieutenant Governor in 2018. And she has also announced that she is running for the U.S. House in the Iowa 2nd Congressional District. And to have a good conversation about agriculture and all sorts of related issues, joining us today is Rita Hart. So Rita, thank you for joining us. Feel free to introduce yourself, and then we'll have a good question and answer period with our participants.
Yeah, so it's great to be here, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation. There's so much to talk about when it comes to ag issues these days. So I'm excited to have this conversation, and I'll just, you did a great job of giving a bit of my background. I would just add that I was born and raised on a dairy farm outside of Charles City, Iowa. Had the great pleasure of learning how to work hard early, and was raised with 8 brothers and sisters on that dairy farm, and from there came down to Eastern Iowa when I did my student teaching. So I did my student teaching in Clinton and have stayed in Eastern Iowa ever since. I married a guy whose family has been farming near Wheatland, Iowa for about 150 years. And I started my teaching career in Bennett. And then we got married and we bought a farm here south of Wheatland in 1986. And we've been farming here ever since, while I taught school for over 20 years and raised our 5 children who all attended the Cal Wheat school system, and then spent 6 years as a state senator representing all of Clinton County and part of Scott County. And I find it to be a great time to chat with farmers all across this district as we face some really big headwinds right now. And so I'm really excited to hear more from you and see what kind of conversation we can have here today.
Well, very good. Yes, there's no end of agricultural issues to talk about these days, and I'm sure you're meeting lots of folks ready to have that discussion on the campaign trail. We did have a few people submit questions beforehand, and I would encourage everyone to submit the questions to the Q&A box on our Zoom screen here, and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can during our time. So thank you so much for doing that with us, and we'll just kind of begin our conversation with a couple of questions. The first one comes from someone who is asking about climate issues, and given the seriousness of the climate crisis bearing down on farmers and threatening our ability to safely and reliably grow our nation's food. The question is, will you support strong action to mitigate climate change? And specifically, will you create financial support and incentives for regenerative agriculture and carbon sequestration practices? It's a long question. We can break it up if we need to.
No, that's fine. There's a lot of discussion in that, but the quick, short answer to that is yes, of course. We have got to take some definite action on practices that truly can make a difference in climate change, and that are also going to be good for farmers and good for farming, right? As we are lucky to be living, I'm lucky to be living in the state of Iowa, where we've done so much research in this area, where we know that certain practices are already making a difference, but that we have so far to go. So that we do need to have change in policy. We need to make it easier for farmers to do what they know will make a difference. And so to work hard on that farm bill, and to have additional legislation that encourages farmers to be able to put in more cover crops, to put in regenerative practices, to do those edge of field practices, to put in more bioreactors, and to use good science to back up what we know will make a difference as far as carbon sequestration is concerned. So many different things that we could be, should be, have to be doing in the future. And also we need to be working on the same kinds of things to make a difference in water quality. And so I look forward to those conversations. I know that groups like this have a great deal to say about what makes the most sense, what kinds of practices and what kind of policy will really push us in the right direction. And so I look forward to continuing those conversations and working hard to make a lot of that reality.
Sure. So just to follow up on that question, we're seeing lots of discussion about agriculture and climate change, and where do farmers take the role in being leaders on this? The question is, what opportunities do you see for farmers to lead on developing farm policy, carbon markets, and actual innovation on their farms? And how do you develop those opportunities for farmers to lead?
Yeah, so when I was a kid growing up, my dad was a soil conservation commissioner. He served as a county supervisor. He was one of the first farmers in his area to put in terraces. We kind of grew up hearing that kind of conversation all the time. And one thing that always resonates in my ear about what he said was always about the ingenuity of the great American farmer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's so clear to me that if we're going to make a difference in these areas, it's farmers that are going to lead the way, and farmers should lead the way. They understand the land, they understand the practices. We've got so much history behind us. And again, there's been so much good research here done in many places, but particularly here in the state of Iowa. So if we allow farmers to really be heard, to get a place at the table so that they can take that leadership role, that's the only way, I believe, we're going to make a difference in this area.
Well, very good. Very good. We also have a question that's really on the front burner for every farm family. The question is, just as workers need a living wage, independent family farmers need a fair price for their crops and livestock in order to survive. A fair price for farmers would cover the cost of production and the cost of living. In the farmers union world, we know this is parity pricing. Do you support farm policy that guarantees fair prices for farmers through higher price floors and considering actions like supply management and a farmer-owned strategic grain reserve?
So yeah, there's a lot packed in that question.
Yes, there is.
So what I would say is that I am ready to go to work on any kind of policy that truly makes sense. And to me, you know, we're in a situation here where because of the trade policy that's gone on, because of the positioning of the United States in this whole trade arena, that we are definitely at a disadvantage now. And so we've got to take some steps to turn that around. But to that point, farmers don't want aid, they want trade. They don't want propped up markets. They want markets that make sense for them. But that's not easy, you know, when you're in a situation like has been created here for us. And so what I would say to that is that I welcome that conversation. I'm very interested that we come up with common sense solutions that get us closer to that place where farmers can be assured that they are going to have an opportunity to continue to make money based on good hard work and good decision making, and not have things stacked against them so that that's not possible.
Sure. In that regard, we know that Iowa's farmers are facing severe issues on farm income. A lot of that is related to the issues that renewable fuels industry is facing at this time. Ethanol. The question from one of our members is what can be done to ensure that this administration or future administrations do not manipulate the renewable fuel standard toward the advantage of fossil fuel companies?
I think first and foremost, we have to have people in these leadership positions who, again, are not who have an equal kind of look at the whole issue, right? Who are not already favoring the fossil fuel industry when they take the positions. And so it's really important that we get good leadership that helps us to create situations where, again, where we're encouraging alternative energy, that we are recognizing the impact that the fossil fuel industry has on the climate, that we are taking a common sense approach in how to get to a better place for making sure that we're not adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, and that we are promoting those kinds of projects that are going to take us in the right direction. That comes from leadership, not being not catering to certain interests, but instead taking an overall view of what's going to take us into a better place. And so I think leadership here makes all the difference in the world. And again, we have to have farmers at the table who understand this issue and understand how we can have good policy that puts us in a position where farmers can make good decisions for their farms, be profitable in doing so, and make a difference on alternative fuels and on climate change in general.
Sure. Very good. The next question comes to us regarding the livestock industry. We know that in Iowa that we have a large concentration of industrial CAFOs. The question comes, will you support Senator Cory Booker's Farm Systems Reform Act? And that includes a moratorium on CAFOs and invests in a just transition for farmers. I'm not sure if you have that particular piece of legislation that you've researched, but the question deals with confined animal feeding operations. I think we lost one another for just a moment.
So sorry, that was my fault. I went to move you over a little bit, and I think I hit the wrong button.
That's just fine. That's just fine. The question I was referring to had to deal with confined animal feeding operations, and we know that there is a large concentration of industrial confined animal feeding operations in Iowa. The specific question asks about Senator Cory Booker's bill, Farm Systems Reform Act of 2019. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that specific piece of legislation, but it wants to know what should be done to address the problems associated with industrial CAFOs.
Yeah, so this is an issue that that is near and dear to the hearts of anybody who works in agriculture, right?
Yeah.
That we have got to listen to the people that are telling us that small farmers are having a harder and harder time staying in business. And that's because we have, I mean, there's many reasons for that, but one of the biggest reasons is the consolidation of the market. And in that consolidation, that many of our family farms have been displaced, and instead we have larger and larger facilities that are more and more controlled by out-of-state entities. And so I am very much interested in working on any kind of plan that promotes a different way of going about that, so that independent family farms can continue to provide a way of life for so many families, and contribute in a real way to feeding the world. I think that this is so important for us. It's important to small towns. It's important to rural communities. It's important to families, and it's important to doing a good job of providing a good way to feed our friends and our neighbors.
Very good. Very good. Our next question deals with the pandemic and ways to address it. Specifically, it says that our food system relies on a vulnerable population working in meat packing plants. And the question asks, what can be done to ensure the safety of workers in this vital part of our food system?
Yeah, that hit us hard here in Iowa, where we had a couple strong outbreaks in a couple packing plants, several packing plants here in Iowa. And I find that to be, a very frustrating aspect, because just like now with the economy, we cannot get this economy going if we don't get a handle on the COVID, if we don't put things into place, if we don't have the proper protective equipment, if we don't practice the physical distancing, if we don't do the things that it's going to take to keep people safe and keep people healthy, then this economy is in for a real challenge. And that's exactly what was happening in the packing industry, that due to the nature of the way the business is operated, when you have people who are working shoulder to shoulder and working very quickly and therefore unable to have protective dividers, etc., that's just a recipe for disaster, which then will mean that there's a complete shutdown when too many people get sick or too many people are afraid to come to work. So it just only makes sense that we may have to take a hit. Things may have to go slower. We may have to use some resources and put in some dividers and some things to keep people safe. But at least if we do those things, production will continue to go on. And that's the important thing, is that we keep people safe so that the work can be done, and we don't suffer a complete shutdown in the supply chain. And so that's I just think it's the only thing that makes sense. It's the right thing to do for human beings who we want to make sure don't get sick. And it's also the smart thing to do economically.
Sure. Sure. Our next question deals with our food system. What can be done to build connections between farmers and local communities and healthy kids in Iowa? The question points out that we estimate that Iowa, of all the food eaten in Iowa, perhaps 10% only comes from Iowans themselves. Is actually grown here. So the question is, how do we connect farmers to local communities?
I think that's a great question, and I think it's one of the most the least explored kinds of options that we should be looking at. Here in my own community, I've been working with some folks on a small town economic development project, and it's so clear to me that very few of our small towns have good grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are forced to be 30 miles or more from a grocery store where they can buy a decent head of lettuce or
Sure.
good produce that keeps that truly is the nutritional factor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important that we have grocery stores in small towns, and very few of them are left because they've been squeezed out of the market, right?
Sure.
And yet we have some of the best farmland in the world right here, and it doesn't take very many acres to produce a ton of produce. But we lack the way to bring those things together. So in our local community, looking at a way to sponsor some entrepreneurs who would be willing to do that, take a few acres, get it going, put up a greenhouse, work with the local school district who has a great FFA program, who already has a greenhouse, and perhaps a cooperation can exist between that entrepreneur, the FFA department, the consumer science department there at the school, and the local grocery store, and the master gardeners in the area, the community garden system. And then work that into the school lunch system. But we have to have programs in place that help those things get started and figure out what it's going to take to keep those things profitable, so that that makes sense for that local entrepreneur, and that makes sense for that local farmer to get involved in an enterprise like that. But the results would be tremendous, I think. I think if every one of our smaller towns had a good, decent grocery store, not only would that be another small business that would trickle out great benefits to the entire area, but as in many rural areas, it would improve the health of the people also, because we have a high rate of obesity, we have a lack of nutrition, and it certainly is unacceptable in an area where we have some of the greatest farmland in the world.
Well, very, very good. And perhaps we should close with this question as a good summary question. What agriculture issues will you be stressing as you travel through the congressional district on your campaign? What rural resident and rural development issues will you be stressing during your campaign?
Yeah, I've been having those conversations. It's something that I truly believe are the most important issues that face this district, is how do we support an economy when we are faced with such a tough farm situation, and when our small towns are suffering. And it doesn't take much looking around to see how hard it is for small towns right now. So there's so many fronts on that. I've been talking a lot about, especially now in time of COVID, how important it is for everyone to have access to high-speed internet. That is crucial, not only to our farmers and to people who are forced now to work from home, or who would like to work from home but cannot. We have affordability and accessibility issues in that, and that is a huge thing for our economy in general. But I've been working hard on rural economic issues for a long time in my Senate district, and that district is much like our congressional district. Each one of these small towns, each one of these rural areas has a way to work towards prosperity, but we have to provide those kinds of resources, and we've got to do something about climate change in the process. And I think that, and water quality. And I think those efforts can come together on the same path to success if we work together to find those solutions, so that life here in rural America can be successful.
Well, very good. Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that this is just the beginning of conversations that you're having around the district and that you've had around Iowa. So we really appreciate your time to have that conversation. We will look forward to more opportunities in the future.
Absolutely, Aaron. It was great to be here today, and I hope that we do have many more conversations going up. They're just the most important issues that I think that people of this district face.
Well, very good. Very good. Thank you again. And I want to remind people that we are doing an ongoing series of lunch and learns, and our upcoming sessions will be July 9th with Matt Russell, and then on July 16th and 23rd with Art Cullen. This is an ongoing series put on by the Iowa Farmers Union. We're an organization that has been around for 100 years advocating for family farmers and sustainable agriculture. And we only make a difference on these issues by working together, by having these conversations, by talking about solutions that can work for rural Iowa. If you're not a Farmers Union member, please consider joining now. We need you now more than ever in these very, very challenging times. So again, thank you for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you on July 9th with Matt Russell, and then on the 16th and 23rd with Art Cullen. And I'm going to leave another reminder for you to consider the Farm Aid grant program to farm families in need. If you are in need or you know of a farm family in need, please go to iowafarmersunion.org. We're still accepting applications at this time for that great program sponsored by Farm Aid and by the Iowa partners in that program. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. Have a good day, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Aaron.
Thank you very much.